Hi there. I am the CRM Ninja, and on today's episode of the Oops Factor, I have Michelle Wong. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hi, Eli. Thank you. Thank you for having me in.
It's great to have you on. Partially also because I know obviously you live in Holland and my wife is Dutch, and it's always wonderful to talk to Dutch people.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I don't understand your question, UI.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. I'll cut this bit out. So the reason why I have the background that I do, which even for me is somewhat unusual, is because I understand that you're into anime, Japanese anime. Is that correct?
Yes. In spare time, I watch them with my kids.
So did you get into it originally because of your kids? Did your kids get you into it, or did you find it and decide to share it with your kids?
No, it's just from my background, from Chinese background, and in child time, I usually watch a lot of mangas and animes. So and now I have my own kids, and in spare time, I just show them the movies and the animes that I've watching, and how great they are. And also there are a lot of new animes, so we are also watching the newest one. So
nice
that's what we do in spare time, to spend time together, right?
It is one way of spending time together. I don't think my kids would be particularly interested in anime. I mean, at the moment they're watching Minions, which is always interesting. Like, the minion went blue and then he went yellow. So what are your favorite anime series and why?
Yeah, one I have watched a lot in when I was young was one of the backgrounds people you have, that was Dragon Ball.
Okay.
And another one is Sailor Moon, that's I also watching. And and also another names, but I don't know how they called, but I only know the Chinese names of them. So
okay, not a problem. So,
and currently I'm watching Naruto with my kids, so that's another one.
Very nice. So if somebody said to you, Michelle, I've heard about anime and manga, and I'm wondering what to watch to get into it, what would you recommend as a starting point?
Actually, it depends on what you like to see. There are different types of animes, for example, love stories, or some science fictions, or there's also a lot of animes with a sport, something like volleyball or tennis or soccer, and then and if I know what kind of a type of animes they like, then I can suggest them some. But
Wow.
if I have to tell you the exact name, then I have to search on Google first. But
okay.
I know some, they are very excited and with a lot of series, so you can take a look of it.
I hadn't realized that there were so many genres around it.
Yeah, also on Netflix, I saw some animes on Netflix, and which you can hear it in. It's translated in English, so you can see if you can find some animes in Netflix too.
Nice. I'll have to go check it out. So, going from anime to the Oops Factor, what do you have to share with us today?
Yeah, I was thinking about one of the first time I created my Power Automate cloud flows. And I was working on a big company with more than 2,000 workers. And I have to analyze some SharePoint list data. And I created a flow with a trigger when an item was created or modified. So that was my trigger point. And then the next action that I did was get all the information from the list and then start looping. And another action was send an email with the data that I have collected from the list, and also update the SharePoint list. So I think
if I can just ask you,
you can guess this.
Was this as a consultant role where you were going into another company, or this was internal?
It was it was a mix of internal and consultant role. They just how do you say, they ask you to help them, and then you work for their environment and start figure it out and looking if you can fix the problem and solve it. But it's also a mix of consultancy and give them advice how to maintain and how to collect the information, do their work for them.
So you had this Power Automate Cloud Flow, which sounds quite intense. And as you said, you're looking at SharePoint list, it was triggered on the list and it emails and it updated the list. So what went wrong? I mean, I can guess, possibly.
Yeah, I think you can guess it. I think you can guess it. I just did a trigger. I get all items from the SharePoint list, and I also want to update the SharePoint list and send an email after that. But because I was sitting in a loop, and I did conditioning into the checking. So every time I send an email, I update my SharePoint list. But because of my trigger point, when an item was created or updated, then start doing the loop, starting the flow again. So I was sitting in an infinite loop actually. So I was spamming emails to different peoples with a lot of emails. So the first thing I have to do was stop the flow from running.
How did you find out that it was looping and sending out what I could only assume was a lot of emails?
Yeah, because I was viewing back the logging in SharePoint, and also I was expecting to receiving some mails, but I saw a lot of mails spamming out. So that was a big oops moment for myself.
So you realize something went wrong when instead of, say, getting 10 emails, you got 10,000 emails.
Yeah, I was sending a lot of spam emails to all other peoples from the company. So
wow.
I had to send a sorry email or a spam email that wasn't that was targeted to you. So just ignore it, and so I have to fix that problem first.
How many people in the company contact you to say we're receiving lots of emails?
Yeah, luckily I have another colleague. It's the, how do you say, the first line workers. So they receive the mails and the contacts. But yeah, I have to apologize and tell them that wasn't the reason that we sent the mail. So I have to fix it as soon as possible. But that was one of the biggest problems and blocking issues that I was when I created my first Power Automate Cloud Flows.
So obviously you were in a loop situation, and the first thing is you said to turn it off. I've done loops myself, right? Not deliberate loops where you end up triggering at the end of the flow or somewhere in the flow, you end up triggering something which triggers the flow itself. How did you mitigate the scenario? What did you do to stop it happening? Because obviously you needed the flow to do something, but what did you put in place to fix it?
Yeah, I have to put some conditionals into the flow. So if it met the requirements, then go further. Otherwise, go out of the flow and stop it. So just terminate the flow. So that's the first thing. So you get some extra fields or columns or requirements that have to be matched. And also in the send mail action, I first set my own email address instead of the email address to the receiver. So I can spam myself first if it's something went wrong in my in the debugging process. And when it went to production, or I know it is now good enough, then I put the correct to mail address into the action of the sent email action. So that was
go on.
So that was one of the biggest oops moment for myself when I was creating Power Automate flows. So now every time when I create the flows, I know, okay, I have to figure it out. I have to meet some requirements before I go further in my flow and send actions or doing something else that I want to do. And also make sure I went out of the flow if needed.
Got it. Yes, it is. It's quite important to do things. I see so many people who create Power Automates and they don't think about triggering it off specific columns, whether that's SharePoint or a Dataverse table or something like that, and the conditions around it and such. They just put it in, when a record is created or modified, then do X. They don't put, any triggers, any condition stuff in there. And
yes, and sometimes you're facing some complex processes, and then you want to put all into one flow to do phase 1, phase 2, second phase, and then if this requirement meets, then do the next step. But sometimes it is also better to keep it simple and place it into different flows. So the main flow called the child flow, or when this happened, then go to the next flow and start the next process instead of keeping all in one place.
I was wondering if you'd say
on cloud flows.
I was wondering if you'd say parent-child flows, because I remember, obviously, at the beginning, there didn't used to be parent-child flows, and then they came in.
Yeah, in the beginning, this was something about 2 years ago, but now I know how to fix it and how to ignore those kind of problems. But in the beginning, I was making everything into one flow, so my flow was really complex and also very hard to maintain, and also you have to figure a lot of things to ignore or to exclude. So that was making myself complex and difficult.
That sounds very important. So apart obviously from being careful about how you trigger a flow and putting conditional logic in, what other things in your experience would you say should people be aware of when going ahead and using Power Automate flows and creating them?
I saw a lot of people using flow templates. That's their starting point. But actually, I always create flows from scratch. Okay. Because then I know what to do when and analyze all the steps one by one. And also a lot of people do just an update, or they get all the things, but they don't know how to maintain the flow. And also every time I write a flow, I give them good names. So good names on the actions, it's very important, but also place notes like expressions that I've used, or telling them what kind of conditions I did over here. So if there are some people going in with my flow, then they know what I was doing and how I have achieved that.
I fully agree with that, especially naming actions. I've looked at several cloud flows over the last few years. One is springing to mind. I'm not going to mention what it did or where it was, but had about 60 or 70 different things in it, and they hadn't named the actions. So it's like a get record, record 2, get record 4, update record, create record.
Compose 1, compose 2.
Yes, all of that. It is such a headache and such a nightmare. So for people watching, if you're creating Power Automate flows, please name the actions properly so that people can look, especially because if you need to modify it, you need to take an output from a previous step, you don't know which one you want.
Yeah, and also if I use compose actions a lot, and every time if I use expressions, then I also do a copy of the expression that I've wrote and put it into add a note functionality. So if they open the compose, they can see what kind of expression I've used for that action.
That's great, because let's face it, that compose editor is, you know, the
yeah,
editor
just
for
like
expressions
some comments that you have pasted in. Yeah.
Yeah, and that expression editor is not particularly user friendly.
Yes, so that's the main important things that I used for Power Automate flows.
Wonderful. Any other tips that you think you might care to share with us today?
No, not really, but yeah, if you want to play with cloud flows, then just go ahead. I think it's very useful for nowadays. You can achieve a lot of things. Also, with Power Automate, you can connect it with a graph API. Then you can create a lot of more actions and grab a lot of information that you want to achieve within Office 365, but also with other connectors. So I do think Power Automate is the way to go to help you digitalize and automate things.
Yes, I have to say, one of the things that really amuses me around Power Automate, or Power Automate specifically, is obviously Microsoft release a new connector about every week and a half, and just seeing people who tweet about to say, this is a new connector has been released, it's the 572nd one.
Yeah.
And just see that go around Twitter, which I always find really funny.
Yeah, but actually I just only use 10 or 20 of the connections, and that's it. The most, the mainly I have used, I use is just the Office 365 connectors or Graph or Azure connectors to grab all the informations, but not the Twitter or the Facebook ones. So that I don't use that.
Got it. I've used the Twitter one for pulling in information. I haven't used the Facebook one at all.
Just for examples to show that it's possible to achieve, to get a timeline, a tweet post or something like that, but not for work or not for a company environment.
No, definitely not. Although I do know of companies that actually pull the data in from Twitter, and they look for hashtags more around customer service.
Yeah, for communication department, for example, to know what is what was tweet about hashtag. Blah, blah, blah.
Very, very true. Brilliant. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences.
Yeah. Once again, thank you for inviting me, EY.
It's been a great pleasure. Viewers, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Feel free to check out the rest of the Oops Factor playlist, subscribe to the channel, and take a look at the blog. And if you would like to come and share your own story, hit the link somewhere in this description below, put your details in, and I'd love to have you on the show. But above all, have an amazing day.